The morning light streamed through the tall windows of First City Bank, catching dust particles that danced in the air. Rachel Bennett adjusted her navy blazer and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear as she prepared for another ordinary Tuesday. For 16 years, she had occupied the same teller position, greeting customers with the same practiced smile and following the same unwavering procedures that kept the financial institution running smoothly. "Morning, Rachel," called out Denise from the neighboring window as she arranged her pens in perfect alignment. "Did you hear about the new security measures they're rolling out next month?" Rachel nodded, unlocking her cash drawer. "Training starts next week. More hoops for customers to jump through. But after that fraud case in the downtown branch, I guess we need it." The first hours of the day passed in a familiar rhythm. Elderly customers making modest withdrawals, small business owners depositing yesterday's earnings, young professionals rushing in during their coffee breaks. Rachel handled each transaction with efficiency and warmth, a perfect balance she had mastered over the years. Shortly before lunch, when the lobby had momentarily emptied, the glass doors swung open. A man walked in, his confident stride immediately catching Rachel's attention. He wore faded jeans, a simple gray t-shirt, and weathered sneakers, nothing like the suits and business casual attire that typically moved through the bank's marble floors. What stood out most was his quiet confidence, the way he scanned the room briefly before heading straight to Rachel's window. "Good morning," Rachel greeted him with her usual professional smile.
"How can I help you today?"
The man smiled back, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Morning. I need to make a withdrawal, please." His voice was deep and pleasant, with a subtle accent Rachel couldn't quite place. "Of course, I'll just need to see your account information and ID." The man reached into his back pocket and pulled out a folded check and a business card. "No ID, no bank card." Rachel's trained eye immediately noted the missing elements. "I'd like to withdraw $75,000, he stated calmly, sliding the check across the counter. "Cash, please." Rachel blinked, momentarily taken aback by both the amount and the casual way he had requested it. She glanced down at the check. It was filled out properly, but this was not a standard withdrawal slip, and the amount far exceeded what most people carried out of the bank in cash. "Sir, for a withdrawal of this size, I'll need to see proper identification and verification of your account. This check alone isn't sufficient for what you're requesting." The man leaned slightly forward, his expression still pleasant but more intent. "The account number is there on the check." "My name is Thomas Okafor. I opened an account here 3 weeks ago when I moved to the area." Rachel typed the name into her system, and indeed, an account appeared, a recently opened one with a substantial balance. But bank protocol was clear: no exceptions to identification requirements, especially for large transactions. "Mr. Okafor, I can see your account, but I still need to see government-issued photo identification before processing this transaction. It's bank policy for any withdrawal, but especially for amounts over $10,000. A flicker of something. Amusement? Crossed Thomas's face. "I left my wallet in my other pants this morning. Surely you can make an exception. The money is mine after all." Rachel straightened her shoulders slightly. "I'm very sorry, but I cannot process this transaction without proper identification. It's not just bank policy, it's required by federal regulations." The lobby had grown busier now. From the corner of her eye, Rachel noticed her supervisor, Mr. Hawkins, watching the interaction from his glass-walled office. 2 other customers had lined up behind Mr. Okafor, and Rachel could feel the weight of their impatience. "Perhaps," she added in a lower voice, "you could return with your identification? I'd be happy to help you then." Thomas Okafor studied her for a long moment. Rachel maintained her professional smile, though her heart beat a little faster. In her experience, this was when customers typically became angry or argumentative. Wealthy clients, in particular, often took policy enforcement as a personal affront. But instead of anger, Thomas's expression softened into what looked almost like respect. "You know what? You're absolutely right." His voice carried no hint of frustration. "Rules exist for good reasons. I should know better." He folded the check and slipped it back into his pocket. "Thank you for doing your job properly." Rachel blinked in surprise. "Thank you for understanding, sir. We'll be happy to help you when you return with your ID." With a nod, Thomas stepped aside, allowing the next customer to approach. As he turned to leave, Rachel noticed him exchange a brief glance with Mr. Hawkins, who had emerged from his office and now stood near the loan officer's desk. "Next, please." Rachel called, already refocusing on the elderly woman now stepping up to her window. The rest of the afternoon continued without incident, though Rachel found her thoughts occasionally drifting back to the unusual encounter. It wasn't until her break at 2:30 that she discovered why. In the small break room behind the teller area, Rachel was pouring herself a cup of coffee when Denise rushed in, eyes wide with excitement. "Rachel, do you have any idea who you just turned away earlier?" Denise's voice was a barely contained whisper. Rachel stirred cream into her coffee. Someone who forgot his ID? That was Thomas Okafor. When Rachel's expression remained blank, Denise continued, "The Thomas Okafor. The guy who created that software every bank in the country is now using for their mobile apps. He sold his company last year for almost $1 billion. The spoon in Rachel's hand froze mid-stir. "What? No, that can't be right." He was wearing jeans and an old t-shirt. That's how these tech guys dress. I recognized him from that feature in Business Weekly last month. My husband is obsessed with him, calls him the most innovative financial security expert of our time. Rachel's stomach tightened. Had she just turned away one of the wealthiest clients the bank had ever seen? If that's true, why wouldn't he just identify himself? Who knows how rich people think? Denise shrugged. But Mr. Hawkins is freaking out. I overheard him on the phone with regional management. Rachel set her coffee down, appetite gone. 16 years of spotless service and now this. Great, I'll probably be written up for this. Maybe not. Hawkins actually seemed impressed that you stuck to protocol, even with someone important. Before Rachel could respond, the break room door opened, and their colleague Jin poked his head in. "Rachel, Mr. Hawkins wants to see you in his office. Right now." The walk across the lobby felt endless. Rachel could feel eyes following her. Had everyone already heard? At Mr. Hawkins's door, she took a deep breath and knocked. "Come in," called her supervisor's voice. Rachel entered, her practiced professional smile firmly in place despite her racing heart. "You wanted to see me, sir?" What she saw inside the office made her stop short. Mr. Hawkins was not alone. Seated in one of the visitor chairs, now wearing a crisp blazer over his t-shirt, was Thomas Okafor. "Rachel," Mr. Hawkins gestured to the empty chair. "Please have a seat." She sat down, back straight, hands folded in her lap, mentally preparing for whatever was coming next. 16 years of exemplary service had to count for something, didn't it? "I believe you've already met Mr. Okafor," her supervisor continued. Though perhaps not under the best circumstances. Thomas smiled at her, that same warm expression he'd shown at the window. "On the contrary, I think our meeting couldn't have gone better." Rachel's confusion must have shown on her face because Thomas leaned forward, his expression earnest. "Ms. Bennett, do you know why I came to your bank today? To make a withdrawal?" Her voice sounded small even to her own ears. Thomas exchanged a glance with Mr. Hawkins before continuing. "Partially, but I was also conducting something of an informal test." "A test?" "Last month someone walked into the downtown branch of this bank, convinced a teller to process a withdrawal of $50,000 with incomplete identification, and disappeared with money from an account that wasn't theirs. The real account holder was out of the country." Rachel's eyes widened. This was the fraud case Denise had mentioned this morning. "Since then," Thomas continued, "I've been working with your bank's security team to evaluate procedures at various branches. Today I visited 3 different locations attempting the same transaction each time." Mr. Hawkins cleared his throat. "You were the only teller who followed protocol exactly as required, Rachel. The other 2 processed the transaction." Rachel sat in stunned silence as the realization washed over her. What she had thought might end her career had instead highlighted her commitment to doing things right. "Your integrity impressed me," Thomas said simply. "In my line of work, that's the quality I value most." The conversation that followed would alter the course of Rachel's life in ways she couldn't yet imagine. But in that moment, all she felt was the sweet relief of knowing that sometimes doing the right thing, even when it seems difficult or uncomfortable, can lead to unexpected opportunities. And sometimes life's biggest changes begin with the smallest decisions, made in the span of mere seconds. Rachel couldn't remember the walk back to her teller window after the meeting. Her mind buzzed with everything Thomas Okafor had said, making the familiar path across the marble floor of First City Bank feel dreamlike and distant. "You okay?" Denise whispered as Rachel slipped back behind her counter. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I'm fine, Rachel replied, though her voice sounded strange to her own ears. I'll tell you later. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur. Rachel helped customers, counted cash, and processed transactions with the same efficiency she always had. But her thoughts kept drifting back to the conversation in Mr. Hawkins' office. When the bank finally closed at 5, Rachel sank into her chair and let out a long breath. Most of her coworkers were already gathering their belongings, eager to head home. But she needed a moment to process everything that had happened. "Spill it," Denise said, perching on the edge of Rachel's desk. "What did Hawkins say? Are you in trouble?" Rachel shook her head slowly. The opposite, actually. She lowered her voice, though most of their colleagues had already left. That man, Thomas Okafor, was testing bank security. He's been going to different branches, trying to make withdrawals without ID to see who follows protocol. Denise's eyes widened. No way. 3 branches today. I was the only one who turned him away. So you're like a hero or something? Rachel laughed, the tension of the day finally breaking. Hardly, just doing my job. And Hawkins? What did he say? He was pleased. Rachel began organizing her drawer, preparing for tomorrow morning. Said it reflected well on our branch. What Rachel didn't mention was the card Thomas Okafor had pressed into her hand before she left the office, his personal business card with a handwritten note asking her to call him tomorrow. I have a proposition that might interest you, he'd said with that same warm smile. That night, Rachel sat at her small kitchen table, staring at the business card under the yellow light of her overhead lamp. Her 1-bedroom apartment felt particularly quiet as she sipped tea and considered what Thomas might want to discuss. Her phone rang, startling her from her thoughts. It was her sister Lily. Hey Rach, just checking in. How was work? Rachel smiled, grateful for the distraction. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Try me. So Rachel recounted the day's events, from the moment Thomas Okafor walked up to her window to the revelation in Mr. Hawkins's office. Wow, Lily said when Rachel finished. So what's this proposition he mentioned? No idea. Probably wants me to talk to other branches about security protocols or something. Or maybe he wants to offer you a job. Lily had always been the optimistic one. Rachel laughed. Right. A high school graduate bank teller working for a billionaire tech genius. Very likely. Don't sell yourself short. 16 years of experience has to count for something, and he obviously values your integrity. After hanging up, Rachel found herself staring at the business card again. The company name, Okafor Solutions, was printed in sleek silver letters against a deep blue background. She traced her finger over the embossed surface, wondering what tomorrow would bring. Morning came too quickly. Rachel had barely slept, her mind racing with possibilities and doubts in equal measure. She dressed with extra care, choosing her best navy suit and a pair of small pearl earrings that had belonged to her grandmother. At 9:30 a.m., exactly as Thomas had instructed, she dialed the number on the card. Rachel. Thomas's voice came through clear and friendly. Thank you for calling. How are you this morning? Fine, thank you, she replied, trying to sound more confident than she felt. I was wondering if you might be able to meet for lunch today. There's a cafe near your bank, Clayton's. Do you know it? Rachel knew the place well. A small upscale restaurant where bank executives sometimes took important clients. On her salary, she had never dined there herself. Yes, I know it, she said. Excellent. Could you meet me there at noon? After confirming the details, Rachel hung up and stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. What was she getting herself into? The morning at work dragged on endlessly. Rachel found herself checking the clock every few minutes, her stomach tight with anticipation. At 11:45, she informed Mr. Hawkins she was taking her lunch break. Meeting Mr. Okafor, I assume? He asked with a knowing smile. Word traveled fast in the bank. Clayton's was only a short walk from the bank. As Rachel approached, she spotted Thomas through the window, already seated at a corner table. Unlike yesterday, he was dressed in a tailored gray suit that spoke of quiet wealth. Rachel. He stood as she approached, gesturing to the chair across from him. Thank you for coming. A waiter appeared almost immediately, offering menus and filling water glasses. Rachel ordered a simple salad, too nervous to consider anything more substantial. I imagine you're wondering why I asked to meet with you, Thomas said once the waiter had departed. Rachel nodded, taking a sip of water to ease her dry throat. What do you know about my company? He asked. Not much, she admitted. I know you created banking security software that's widely used now. Thomas smiled. That's the simplified version, yes. Okafor Solutions specializes in financial security systems, both digital and procedural. We design the software that protects online banking transactions, but we also create training programs for financial institutions to prevent human error security breaches. Rachel listened intently, trying to understand where this conversation was heading. The incident at the downtown branch last month, that was the third such occurrence in this region this year. Someone has figured out how to exploit the human element of banking security. They're good at it. And that's why you were testing the branches yesterday, Rachel said, beginning to understand. Thomas nodded. Exactly. We're developing a new training program specifically addressing these vulnerabilities, and I need someone who understands frontline banking procedures and has demonstrated an unwavering commitment to security protocols. Rachel's heart began to beat faster. And you think I could help with that? I know you could. What you did yesterday, refusing a large transaction despite potential pressure, that's exactly the mindset we need to instill in tellers across the country. The waiter returned with their food. Interrupting momentarily, when he left, Thomas continued. I'd like to offer you a position with Okafor Solutions, Rachel, as a security consultant and training specialist. Rachel nearly choked on her water. Me? But I don't have a degree in anything related to security. I've just been a teller for 16 years, Thomas finished for her. Exactly. You have 16 years of real-world experience that no degree can provide. You understand the pressures and challenges tellers face every day, and most importantly, you've demonstrated that you can maintain protocol under pressure. What exactly would I be doing? Initially, you would help us develop training materials based on your experience. Later, you might travel to different banks to conduct training sessions. The salary, he named a figure that made Rachel blink in surprise, would reflect the value we place on your expertise. The number he mentioned was nearly triple her current salary. Rachel set down her fork, her salad forgotten. This is unexpected, she said finally. Thomas smiled. I understand. It's a big change to consider. You don't need to decide now. Take a few days to think about it. What about Mr. Hawkins and the bank? I can't just leave them short-staffed. I've already spoken with your regional manager. They understand this is a significant opportunity for you, and while they'd be sorry to lose you, they wouldn't stand in your way. The rest of the lunch passed in a blur of details: benefits, responsibilities, training periods. By the time Rachel walked back to the bank, her mind was swimming. Well? Denise pounced as soon as Rachel returned. What did he want? Rachel hesitated, then smiled. He offered me a job. No way, Denise squealed, drawing attention from nearby customers. She lowered her voice. Doing what? Security consulting. Training other bank tellers. Are you going to take it? That was the question Rachel turned over in her mind throughout the afternoon and into the evening. That night she called Lily again. It sounds amazing, her sister said after hearing the details. But what's holding you back? I can hear it in your voice. Rachel sighed, looking around her small but comfortable apartment. It's just, I've been at the bank my whole adult life. I know what I'm doing there. I'm good at it. This would be completely unknown territory. Isn't that exciting, though? A chance to grow, to challenge yourself? It's terrifying, Rachel admitted. The best opportunities usually are, Lily said softly. As Rachel prepared for bed that night, she caught her reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at her was someone she had known for 42 years. Reliable, competent, cautious Rachel Bennett, who had built a life of comfortable predictability. Was she ready to become someone else? The answer, she realized as she drifted off to sleep, would determine not just her career path but the person she would become in the years ahead. And for the first time in a very long time, Rachel found herself standing at a crossroads with no clear map of what lay ahead. Morning light filtered through Rachel's bedroom curtains as her alarm buzzed persistently. She reached out to silence it, then lay still for a moment staring at the ceiling. For the first time in 16 years, she didn't immediately get up to prepare for her day at the bank. Instead, she allowed herself to think about Thomas Okafor's offer. 3 days had passed since their lunch meeting. Thomas had given her a week to decide, but Rachel knew she couldn't keep the answer to herself much longer. The question had consumed her thoughts, making it hard to focus on her daily tasks. Her phone buzzed with a text from Lily. Made a decision yet? Rachel typed back, working on it. Coming over for dinner tonight? The reply came quickly, absolutely. 7 p.m., I'll bring wine. At the bank, Rachel moved through her morning routine on autopilot. Count the drawer. Arrange the deposit slips. Check the cash recycler. Everything in its place, just as it had been for years. The familiarity was both comforting and suddenly claustrophobic. You're quiet today, Denise commented during their morning break. Rachel stirred her coffee. Just thinking about the offer. Yeah, and? Rachel sighed. I don't know, Denise. It's a huge change. What if I'm not cut out for it? Denise leaned forward. Can I be honest with you? Like really honest? Rachel nodded, bracing herself. You're too good for this place. Denise gestured around the break room. Don't get me wrong, it's a decent job. But you've been doing the exact same thing for 16 years? And you could do it with your eyes closed. Don't you ever wonder what else you might be capable of? The question lingered with Rachel throughout the day. What else might she be capable of? She had never really asked herself that before. At lunch, she found herself sitting alone at a small cafe 2 blocks from the bank, watching people rush by. Most looked hurried, focused on getting back to their offices, their minds already on the next task. Had she looked like that all these years? So caught up in routine that she never stopped to look around? Her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. An unknown number. Hello? Rachel, it's Thomas Okafor. Her heart skipped a beat. Oh, hello. I hope I'm not bothering you. No, not at all. I'm just on my lunch break. Good. I was calling to see if you had any questions about the position. Anything I can clarify that might help with your decision? Rachel hesitated, then decided to be direct. Why me? I'm sure there are people with more qualifications, with degrees in security or finance. There was a thoughtful pause before Thomas answered. Do you know what the biggest challenge is in financial security? What? It's not technology. We can build the most sophisticated security systems in the world, but they're only as strong as the people operating them. The human element is always the most vulnerable point. Rachel watched a young couple at a nearby table, laughing over shared dessert. What we need, Thomas continued, are people who understand that vulnerability from the inside. People with real-world experience who can relate to other frontline workers. Your 16 years of experience can't be taught in any classroom. But I don't know anything about training programs or curriculum development. Those are skills you can learn. Integrity and judgment, the qualities you demonstrated when you turned me away, those are much harder to teach. After they hung up, Rachel sat for a long moment, turning his words over in her mind. The human element, maybe that was the key, not just to financial security but to her decision as well. That evening, Lily arrived with a bottle of wine and a sympathetic ear. They sat at Rachel's small kitchen table, plates of pasta between them. I made a pro and con list, Rachel said, pulling a folded paper from her pocket. Lily grinned. Of course you did. The salary is obviously a pro, Rachel continued, ignoring her sister's teasing. And the opportunity to learn something new, to travel, potentially. Those sound like big pros. But the cons are significant too. I'd be leaving my comfort zone completely. What if I fail? What if I hate it? I've built a life here. My apartment, my routine, my friends at work. Lily took a sip of wine. Can I see the list? Rachel handed it over, watching as her sister studied the carefully written columns. This is very thorough, Lily said finally, but I don't see the most important question on here, which is, what do you want your life to look like 5 years from now? Do you want it to be exactly the same as it is today? Rachel looked around her apartment. The same furniture she'd had for a decade, the same prints on the walls, the same view from her window. She had built a comfortable life here, but was comfort the same as fulfillment? I don't know, she admitted. I never really thought about it that way. Maybe it's time you did. Lily's voice was gentle. This isn't just about a job offer, Rach. It's about what kind of person you want to be. Later that night, after Lily had gone home, Rachel sat on her small balcony, looking out at the city lights. The evening air was cool against her skin as she thought about her sister's words. What kind of person did she want to be? For so long, she had defined herself by her reliability, her consistency. She was the person who showed up every day, who followed the rules, who never made waves. There was value in that, she knew. But was it enough? Thomas Okafor had seen something else in her. a strength she hadn't recognized in herself. The question was whether she had the courage to step into that vision of herself. The next morning, Rachel woke before her alarm. She dressed carefully, choosing a deep teal blouse that Lily had always said brought out the green in her eyes. Today was not a day for navy or gray. At the bank, she asked for a moment with Mr. Hawkins before opening hours. In his office, with the early sun streaming through the blinds, she delivered her decision. "I've decided to accept Mr. Okafor's offer," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. Mr. Hawkins nodded, seeming unsurprised. "I thought you might. It's an exceptional opportunity. I wanted to give proper notice. 2 weeks seems appropriate?" "Of course," he leaned back in his chair. "You know, Rachel, in all my years in banking, I've rarely seen someone with your level of dedication. Okafor Solutions is lucky to have you." Rachel felt a flush of pride at his words. "Thank you, sir. That means a lot. Have you told the others yet?" She shook her head. "I wanted to speak with you first." "Well, don't be surprised if there's a bit of a celebration. You've been the heart of this branch for a long time." Back at her window, Rachel prepared to start her day, the weight of her decision both terrifying and exhilarating. As customers began to filter in, she found herself studying each interaction with new awareness, noting the small security measures that had become second nature over the years. Soon she would be teaching others these same habits. During the morning lull, she called Thomas to formally accept his offer. "That's wonderful news," he said, genuine pleasure in his voice. "When can you start?" "I've given 2 weeks' notice." "Perfect. That gives us time to set up your office and prepare your onboarding materials." Office. The word sent a small thrill through her. She had never had an office before, just her teller window and shared break room. "I'll have my assistant send over the paperwork today," Thomas continued. "And Rachel, I'm really looking forward to working with you." After hanging up, Rachel turned to find Denise watching her, eyebrows raised in question. "I took the job," Rachel said simply. Denise's squeal of excitement drew attention from across the lobby. "I knew it. This calls for celebration. Drinks after work?" By lunchtime, the news had spread throughout the branch. Colleagues stopped by her window with congratulations and questions. How much would she be making? Would she have to move? What exactly would she be doing? Rachel answered as best she could, still processing the reality herself. Each conversation made it more real. She was leaving the life she had known for 16 years and stepping into something entirely new. That evening, as she locked her cash drawer for one of the first of her final times, a strange mix of emotions washed over her. There was fear there, certainly, and doubt about whether she was making the right choice. But underneath those familiar worries was something new, a quiet excitement, a sense of possibility that she hadn't felt in years. On her walk home, Rachel took a different route than usual, passing shops and cafes she rarely visited. The city suddenly seemed full of unexplored corners, untaken paths. Her phone buzzed with a text from Lily. "So proud of you. This is just the beginning." Rachel smiled, typing back, "Thanks for the push." As she reached her apartment building, Rachel paused to look up at the evening sky. For 16 years, she had been the reliable one, the consistent one, the one who never deviated from the rules. Now she was about to become something else, someone who took chances, who embraced change, who stepped into the unknown with courage. The thought was terrifying, it was exhilarating, it was. She realized exactly what she needed. Rachel's final 2 weeks at First City Bank passed in a blur of goodbyes, training her replacement, and wrapping up 16 years of her life. Each day brought a strange mixture of nostalgia and anticipation, as familiar routines suddenly felt precious now that they were numbered. "I can't believe tomorrow's your last day," Denise said as they shared lunch in the break room. "Who am I going to gossip with now?" Rachel smiled, picking at her salad. "I'm sure Lisa will be happy to fill in. She loves a good story." "It won't be the same." Denise's usual cheerfulness dimmed for a moment. "You know that, right? Nothing will be the same without you here." The words touched Rachel more deeply than she expected. "I'll miss you too," she said softly. That evening, Rachel stood in her living room surrounded by cardboard boxes. She wasn't moving far, just to a slightly larger apartment closer to the Okafor Solutions headquarters. But packing up her life had forced her to confront how little had changed over the years. The same dishes, the same books on the shelves, the same pictures on the walls. Even her clothes, as she folded them into boxes, told the story of someone who had stopped evolving long ago. Her phone rang, breaking her reverie. It was Thomas. "Just checking in," he said after they exchanged greetings.
How are you feeling about everything?
Rachel looked around at her half-packed apartment. Honestly? Terrified. Thomas laughed, a warm sound that somehow made her feel less alone. That's completely normal. Change is always scary, even positive change. What if I'm not what you're expecting? The question had been circling in her mind for days. What if I can't do this job? Rachel, Thomas's voice was gentle but firm. I've been in business long enough to trust my judgment about people. You have exactly what we need: experience, integrity, and a willingness to learn. The rest will come with time. After they hung up, Rachel resumed her packing with renewed purpose. Maybe she didn't need to have all the answers right now. Maybe it was enough to be willing to try. Her last day at the bank arrived with unexpected fanfare. Mr. Hawkins had organized a small gathering in the conference room, complete with cake and a card signed by everyone. Customers who had been coming to her window for years stopped by with small gifts and good wishes. Even the regional manager made an appearance, shaking her hand and expressing how the bank would miss her dedicated service. Speech. Someone called as they gathered around the cake. Rachel, never comfortable being the center of attention, felt her cheeks grow warm. I don't really have anything prepared. Just speak from the heart, Mr. Hawkins encouraged. Looking around at the familiar faces, some she had worked alongside for over a decade, Rachel found her voice. When I started here, I was 26 years old and had no idea what I wanted from life. This place, all of you, became my constant. Every day I knew exactly what to expect, who I'd see, what I'd do. She paused, feeling unexpected emotion tighten her throat. There's incredible comfort in that kind of certainty. But I've learned recently that sometimes the most important growth happens when we step away from what's comfortable. She looked around the room. At Denise wiping away a tear. At Mr. Hawkins nodding with understanding. I'll never forget what this place has given me. Not just a job, but a place where I mattered, where my work had value. I'm carrying that with me into this new chapter, and I'm grateful for it. As the gathering dispersed and Rachel cleaned out her locker for the final time, a strange sense of lightness settled over her. For 16 years, this building had been her second home. Now, as she turned in her keys and badge, she was saying goodbye not just to a job, but to a version of herself. Outside, the spring air felt particularly fresh. Rachel paused on the sidewalk, looking up at the bank's impressive facade. Then, with a deep breath, she turned and walked away, not looking back. The weekend passed in a flurry of moving and settling into her new apartment. It was only a 15-minute walk from the HOA Solutions headquarters, a gleaming glass building in the city's growing tech district. On Sunday evening, Rachel stood on her new balcony watching the sunset reflect off the glass towers downtown. Tomorrow, everything would change. She slept poorly that night, waking repeatedly with half-formed anxieties. What if everyone at HOA Solutions was younger and more educated than her? What if they resented this newcomer who had been personally selected by the CEO? What if she couldn't grasp the technical aspects of the job? By morning, Rachel was exhausted but determined. She dressed in her new charcoal pantsuit, an investment piece that had cost more than she would normally spend, but that made her feel capable and professional. Her hands trembled slightly as she fastened her grandmother's pearl earrings, a small connection to her past as she stepped into her future. The HOA Solutions lobby was airy and modern, all clean lines and natural light. A young receptionist greeted her with a warm smile. You must be Rachel. We've been expecting you. I'm Tricia. Nice to meet you, Rachel replied, trying to project a confidence she didn't entirely feel. Let me show you to your office, and then I'll take you to meet the team. Office. The word still gave Rachel a little thrill. She followed Tricia to an elevator, then down a corridor lined with glass-walled offices. People looked up as they passed, offering friendly nods or waves. They reached a door with a simple nameplate, Rachel Bennett, Security Training Specialist. Here we are, Tricia said, pushing open the door. What do you think? The office was modest but lovely, with a desk facing large windows overlooking the city. A small conference table sat in one corner, and the walls were bare, waiting for her personal touch. It's beautiful, Rachel said honestly. Thomas wanted to make sure you had everything you needed. There's a company laptop already set up for you, and IT will be by later to go over our systems. Rachel set her purse down on the desk, running her fingers over the smooth surface. This space was hers, a tangible sign of the trust Thomas had placed in her. Ready to meet the team? Tricia asked. The security department occupied most of the floor. As Tricia led her around, introducing her to her new colleagues, Rachel tried to memorize names and roles. There was Patrick, the cybersecurity expert whose hands moved constantly as he spoke. Diane, the procedural analyst with kind eyes and a firm handshake. Nate, the young programmer who barely looked old enough to be out of college, and at least a dozen others. And this is Alex, Tricia said as they reached the last office. He'll be working with you most closely on the training programs. Alex stood to greet her, a man about her age with salt and pepper hair and glasses. The famous Rachel Bennett, he said with a smile. Thomas hasn't stopped talking about you since he found you. Rachel felt herself blush. I don't know about famous. Anyone who turns away the boss when he's trying to pull a fast one gets instant legend status around here. Alex replied with a wink. Come in, sit down. I've been dying to pick your brain. For the next hour, Alex explained the current state of their training programs and the gaps they were trying to fill. Rachel listened intently, asking questions when something wasn't clear, offering observations based on her years at the bank. This is exactly the perspective we've been missing, Alex said, jotting notes as Rachel described how tellers balance security protocols with customer service pressures. We've been too focused on the technical side without fully understanding the human element. By lunchtime, Rachel's head was spinning with new information, but she was surprised to find herself energized rather than overwhelmed. There was so much to learn, but for the first time in years, she felt the satisfaction of being mentally challenged. Thomas found her in the company cafeteria, sitting with Alex and a few others from the security team. How's the first day going? He asked, joining their table. Rachel looked around at her new colleagues who had spent the last hour making her feel welcome. It's a lot to take in, she admitted, but in a good way. Give yourself time, Thomas advised. No one expects you to master everything in a day. As the afternoon wore on, Rachel began to understand the scope of what she had stepped into. Okafor Solutions wasn't just creating security software. They were rethinking the entire approach to financial safety, focusing on the intersection of technology and human behavior. In her final meeting of the day, she sat with Thomas and the department heads, listening as they discussed their vision for the company's future. The challenge, Thomas was saying, is that most security breaches happen not because the technology fails, but because someone makes a mistake or is deliberately manipulated. That's where Rachel's expertise will be invaluable. All eyes turned to her, and Rachel felt a momentary panic. Just days ago, she had been counting cash and processing deposits. Now these brilliant people were looking at her as if she held some crucial piece of wisdom. I'm still learning, she said carefully. But from what I've seen today, I think there's a real opportunity to bridge the gap between your technical solutions and the realities of everyday banking. Thomas smiled, a look of satisfaction in his eyes. Exactly. That's precisely why you're here. As the meeting ended and people began gathering their things, Alex leaned over to her. Not bad for your first day. Most newcomers are too intimidated to speak up in these meetings. Rachel gathered her new notebook and pen. Believe me, I'm plenty intimidated. Could have fooled me, he replied. See you tomorrow? Walking home in the early evening light, Rachel felt a curious mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. Her mind buzzed with new terms, new faces, new ideas. Everything was unfamiliar, and that was both terrifying and thrilling. In her new apartment, she kicked off her shoes and sank onto the couch, still mostly surrounded by unpacked boxes. She pulled out her phone to call Lily. How was it? Her sister asked immediately. Rachel stared out the window at the city skyline, now tinged with the golden light of sunset. Different, she said finally. Completely different from anything I've ever done. Good different or bad different? Rachel thought about the way Alex had valued her input. The respect in Thomas's voice when he spoke about her experience. The sense that she was part of something important and meaningful. Good different, she said, surprising herself with how certain she felt. Really good different. As night fell over the city, Rachel unpacked a few more boxes, arranging familiar items in her new space. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, more unknowns, But for the first time in years, she found herself looking forward to the uncertainty, curious about what she might discover, not just about her new job, but about herself. 6 months passed like a whirlwind. Rachel's days at Okafor Solutions blended together in a stream of meetings, research and program development that challenged her in ways her bank job never had. The calendar on her office wall, now decorated with photos, awards, and sticky notes, showed just how quickly time had flown. "Ready for the big day tomorrow?" Alex asked, leaning against her doorframe. Over the months, he had become not just a colleague but a friend, guiding her through the complex world of financial security technology. Rachel looked up from her laptop where she was reviewing her presentation one last time. "As ready as I'll ever be." Tomorrow marked the official launch of the training program she had helped develop, a comprehensive system designed to help bank employees identify and prevent security breaches. After months of research, writing, and testing, it was finally going live at 3 major banks, including First City. "You're going to be great," Alex assured her. "Nobody knows this stuff better than you do." Rachel smiled, appreciating his confidence even as butterflies danced in her stomach. "Let's hope the banking world agrees with you." After Alex left, Rachel closed her laptop and leaned back in her chair, looking out at the city lights beginning to flicker on as dusk fell. How different her life looked now compared to a year ago. Her days were no longer filled with the predictable rhythm of counting cash and processing transactions. Instead, every day brought new challenges, new problems to solve, new skills to master. The learning curve had been steep. There were days, especially in the beginning, when Rachel had felt completely out of her depth, drowning in technical terms and complex security concepts. More than once, she had questioned whether she had made a terrible mistake in accepting Thomas's offer. But gradually, she had found her footing. What she lacked in technical knowledge, she made up for with practical experience. Her years at the bank gave her insights that the programmers and security experts, for all their brilliance, simply didn't have. The human element, Thomas had called it that first day, and over the months Rachel had come to understand exactly what he meant. Technology could create sophisticated security systems, but at the end of the day, those systems were operated by people who got tired, who took shortcuts, who made mistakes. Rachel's job was to bridge that gap, to translate complex security requirements into practices that real people could and would follow consistently. On her way home that evening, Rachel took a detour past First City Bank. Through the windows, she could see the familiar lobby, now populated with new faces behind the teller windows. For a moment, she felt a pang of nostalgia for the simplicity of her old life. Tomorrow she would be back in that building, not as a teller but as an expert, a consultant, someone whose opinion mattered. The thought both thrilled and terrified her. At home, Rachel called Lily as she did most evenings. Their conversations had evolved over the months, no longer centered around Rachel's doubts about her new path, but filled instead with stories of her latest projects and the challenges she was overcoming. "I'm presenting the program tomorrow," Rachel said, after they had caught up on Lily's day. "At First City and 2 other banks." "That's huge," Lily exclaimed. "How do you feel about going back to your old workplace?" Rachel considered the question. "Strange. Like I'm returning as a different person." "You are a different person," Lily pointed out. "Look at everything you've accomplished in 6 months." After they hung up, Rachel found herself looking at her reflection in the bathroom mirror as she prepared for bed. Lily was right, she had changed. It wasn't just the new clothes or the different hairstyle, though those external changes reflected her evolving sense of self. The woman looking back at her stood taller, with a confidence that came from being challenged and rising to meet those challenges. She still felt the flutter of nerves when she thought about tomorrow's presentation, but underneath that was a steady certainty that she knew what she was talking about, that she had something valuable to contribute. Morning came quickly. Rachel dressed with care, choosing a deep blue suit that projected professionalism while still feeling like her. As she fastened her grandmother's pearl earrings, now a ritual before important meetings, her phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. "You've got this. The team believes in you." The simple message steadied her nerves as she gathered her materials and headed out. Alex met her in the lobby of First City Bank, looking sharp in his charcoal suit. "Ready to dazzle them with our brilliance?" he asked with a grin. Rachel laughed, grateful for his lightness. Let's just hope the program works as well in practice as it does in theory. Mr. Hawkins greeted them in the conference room, now filled with bank managers and security officers from several branches. Rachel, wonderful to see you again. For a moment, Rachel was transported back to her last day, the cake and cards and tearful goodbyes. How uncertain she had felt then, how unsure of the path ahead. You too, Mr. Hawkins, she replied warmly. Thank you for hosting us today. As people settled into their seats, Rachel spotted Denise slipping into the back of the room. They exchanged smiles, a silent acknowledgement of the journey that had brought Rachel back to this place in such different circumstances. Thomas arrived just as they were about to begin, taking a seat in the corner with a nod of encouragement. His presence might have intimidated Rachel once, but now she felt only gratitude for the opportunity he had given her. Good morning, everyone, Rachel began, her voice steady as she addressed the room. Many of you know me from my time as a teller here at First City. Today, I'm here in a different capacity, to introduce a program that I believe will transform how we approach security in the banking sector. For the next hour, Rachel presented the training system she had helped develop, explaining how it integrated technological safeguards with practical, human-centered procedures. She walked them through case studies, including the incident that had brought Thomas to her window 6 months ago, and demonstrated how the new protocols could prevent similar security breaches. As she spoke, Rachel watched understanding dawn on the faces around her. These were people like her former self, banking professionals who dealt with security challenges every day without the resources to address them systematically. She could almost see the moment when they realized that what she was offering could make their jobs easier, not harder, a rare quality in new security measures. When she opened the floor for questions, hands shot up around the room. Rachel fielded each query with confidence, drawing on both her new expertise and her years of frontline experience. When technical questions arose, she seamlessly handed off to Alex, their partnership a model of the collaboration between practical experience and technical knowledge that the program itself represented. You've thought of everything, Mr. Hawkins commented, genuine admiration in his voice. Not everything, Rachel admitted honestly. That's why the program is designed to evolve. As new challenges emerge, as people find workarounds, which they always do, the protocols will adapt. At the end of the presentation, as bank officials crowded around to ask follow-up questions and request implementation timelines, Thomas approached her with a smile. Impressive, he said simply. You've exceeded my expectations, Rachel, and they were already high. Coming from Thomas, who set the bar for excellence impossibly high, the compliment meant everything. Thank you for taking a chance on me, she replied. Not many would have seen potential in a bank teller with no formal qualifications. Thomas shook his head. I didn't take a chance. I made an investment, one that's paying off better than I anticipated. As the crowd thinned, Denise made her way over, pulling Rachel into a tight hug. Look at you, she exclaimed, stepping back to take in Rachel's transformation. Big shot security expert now. Rachel laughed. Hardly. I'm still learning every day. Well, you could have fooled me. You sounded like you've been doing this your whole life. They caught up briefly, Denise sharing bank gossip and Rachel offering glimpses of her new world. As they talked, Rachel realized that while she missed her old friends, she didn't miss the limitations of her former life. The rest of the day passed in a blur of presentations at the other banks, each one smoother than the last as Rachel grew more comfortable in her role as expert and educator. By evening, as they wrapped up the final session, even Alex looked impressed. I think we've created a monster, he joked as they packed up their materials. You're a natural at this. Rachel smiled, feeling the pleasant exhaustion that comes from giving your